I've known situations where literally a spouse will have all the proof, all the evidence. They have audio recordings, they have video recordings, they have eyewitnesses, they have text messages, emails, all of the evidence, and something inside of them says, maybe it's not true.
Always trust your instincts. Like if you had to place a bet on something, bet on yourself. Other than PTSD from like violent encounters or life and death situations, betrayal trauma is really the second, it's the next biggest like emotional mental trauma you can go through.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to After Infidelity. My name is Hasani Pettiford. I am the host of the show. As you know, for the last 15 years, I have been an infidelity recovery specialist, and my wife and I have a private practice called Couples Academy. We've been doing a podcast for quite some time, but we have this new concept where we want to talk about the challenges that people experience after an affair and what you need to do about it. And I'm excited today that I have a gentleman that I met just recently, but we've developed a relationship that I'm really excited about. His name is Jay Hall. He is a private investigator. And oftentimes when spouses are questioning whether their spouse, their partner, their husband, their wife is in an affair, they'll reach out to a private investigator. The reason why I'm excited about this show is because I've done a lot of reality TV. And on reality TV, oftentimes they will hire private investigators. So obviously you see what you see on the screen, but I've had many just intriguing conversations when we're not filming to really get a deeper dive into what's involved in the process and what impact that has on the couples they work with. And so now, because I'm in relationship with somebody, really interested in this conversation, I think this is something that the people really need to know about. So once again, Jay Hall, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's give me a little bit of background on who you are, how long you've been in the industry, and what motivated you to get into this space. And I know specifically you deal with couples, but from a broader perspective, what are some of the other areas that you work in as a private investigator?
Well, my experience is kind of unique because, years ago I used to work in law enforcement, and so I kind of had, through my professional experience, the ability to investigate cases and things like that through that professional experience that I no longer am in anymore. But a couple years ago, I went through my own, personal experience through divorce, through infidelity and stuff like that. And it's kind of how I learned about you was, going through the internet videos, finding you guys on YouTube. And when I moved to Atlanta, I really wasn't planning on getting into any like PI work or anything like that, but I put my feelers out there, talked to a couple companies and started, doing some work on the side for one, and started working with a lot of infidelity cases.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because it's almost like a full circle where, I had this experience from my previous professional career. And then I go through it in my personal life. And then as I relocated to the Atlanta area, I started dealing with it on the private side, when people are actually going through it. So not only I had my own personal experience, now I'm dealing with it on a professional level in kind of PI work. And that's kind of why I was thinking to myself, I talk to a lot of people, and typically our clients that hire us are going through this process.
I have a question in regards to what you do, because you don't only have the expertise, but you have the experience. And what I have found is that when you have that combination, it makes you more powerful in what it is that you do. And that may have, what you've gone through has created a passion for you to try to help other couples. I want to talk about, if you're comfortable with it or to what degree you are. Usually when people are contacting a PI, they have some idea, indication, and they're looking for confirmation of what they may not have proof or evidence of. When you discovered what you discovered with your spouse, I don't need to know the details of it, but what was the impact when you came to the realization that, you know what, this actually did happen?
Wow, that's a great question, because dealing with the clients that I deal with, they're going through that stage. And I remember that stage for me personally, and it was, you almost don't want to believe it. And I think that's part of that psychological defense mechanism that we have. There's a surreal aspect to it. Like you see the smoke, but you haven't found the fire yet, and there's a lot of people. I was the type of person that when I saw the smoke, I had to find the fire. There's some people, the smoke's enough. They know, they're like, listen, I know, I don't need all this. But the word you use, confirmation, man, that's a tough thing.
Okay, I don't know if you know the answer to this. You've dealt with a lot of people, right? But let's deal with the couple or the individual who they have a suspicion, but yet they don't want to know. Now, I have my ideas why certain people would not want to know, but from your experience, why do you think that there are certain people who just rather not know or have the evidence that they're forced to face for themselves?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes when people have certain suspicion, or at least when people get to us initially, they've already been kind of gaslighted for a long period of time, and they're struggling with trusting themselves, trusting their own instincts. Like we're all human, we're not perfect. Like we all have our instincts though. Our instincts aren't always 100% correct. Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes we're wrong. But I will always tell somebody, always trust your instincts. Like if you had to place a bet on something, bet on yourself. Just if your instincts turn out to not be true, that's okay. But the majority of the time, our instincts are correct. It's almost like going back to school when your teacher tells you, when you go back and your first guess on a question is typically the right guess. So when you go back, don't change your answers.
That's a good point.
It's almost like, the best thing you could do, even the best therapy for being gaslighted is to try to like hit a reset button, take a step back and say, you know what? Nobody's perfect. No one's right about everything, but I'm going to trust my instincts.
I think that's a very good point, because you know what? I've known situations where literally a spouse will have all the proof, all the evidence. They have audio recordings, they have video recordings, they have eyewitnesses, they have text messages, emails, all of the evidence, and something inside of them says, maybe it's not true. And they're looking for confirmation, validation from their spouse. And when they don't get it, they're like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I just need to hear you say it.
Yeah.
And so they begin to question themselves. It's almost like the Rodney King beating that we know from back in the 90s. Like the television, the news reporters are trying to convince us your eyes are lying to you.
Correct.
You are not seeing what you're seeing. And I think that's the same state that so many betrayed spouses find themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'm talking about trusting your instincts is a key to, learning how to trust yourself again, especially after you've been gaslit or you've, been made to feel crazy. You have these instincts. The person has a million excuses. Psychologically, your body your mind is trying to defend yourself against this tragedy. It's trying to protect you. So even your own mind is trying to tell you, maybe you are just overthinking this. Maybe that you are wrong. Maybe this, and that's normal. That's okay. But even at the end of the day, you can always just trust yourself, because on the other end, when you start coming out of this, that's going to be your foundation to trust the way you see the entire rest of the world too. Because that's, the way I understand it, like, I think that's why the betrayal trauma, other than PTSD from like violent encounters or life and death situations, betrayal trauma is really the second, is the next biggest like emotional mental trauma you can go through, because it calls into question your whole existence.
It does.
It's not just how you viewed that person or how you knew that person. It's you're gonna question yourself. And if you question yourself, you question everything about yourself. You know, everything in the world that you view, your whole outlook. And so I think if you can just take a step back and say, you know what, just in a level of principle, I'm going to trust my instincts. That I'm not saying your instincts are always right, but they are the majority of the time. And I think when you get stripped down bare, like after a betrayal trauma like that, the first thing you can do is cut yourself a break and say, you know what, I'm not crazy, or I mean, to an extent, everyone has their own little bit of crazy. Yeah. But you can trust your instincts.
I want to pause on the instincts just for a second, because I think this is a teachable moment. Because as humans, either like there's three triads that exist. There's the heart type people, there's gut type people, and head type people. So your instincts, depending upon who you are and how you're wired, may come from the gut. It's a feeling that you have.
Correct.
And then some, it's a thought that just constantly goes through your mind. For others, it's a feeling in your heart. And so depending upon your type, you have to lean into that. But I think you made a great point. You said in essence, my gut is saying this, but my mind is saying that. And there's this thing called the quadrinity identity. So we all have it. And the quad, meaning four, quadrinity identity says that there's four aspects of ourselves. There's our spiritual self, our intellectual self, our emotional self, and our physical self. So we're hearing different messages from each four of these aspects of ourselves, and oftentimes the messaging is different. And so my spirit is saying this, my emotions are saying that, my intellect is saying something else, my physical body, and we're all over the place. We're confused and we don't know what to do, and we wind up doing nothing.
Correct.
And so to your point, if you have this urge, this feeling that's overwhelming and you can't shake it and it won't go anywhere, trust it and do something with it.
If I found a text message in someone's phone, or someone finds that, they want to, hey, what is this about? You know, you want to act on it, you want to confront it. And the best thing to do is just kind of take you have the information, but maybe sleep on it for a day. Don't go for that confrontation right away. And the reason why is because that confrontation will be emotional. And sometimes it's better to kind of sleep on it and think about it. And I'm saying, like, even if the text message is like full on, I caught you. You know, sometimes there's text messages, they're suggestive, but they don't, but then there's a text message that's like, oh, that we had a great time last night. Like, the text message itself is evidence. Like, you know that this person and this other person was your partner, and this other person were intimate. Sometimes just, document that and hold on to it, because if you are looking to hire a PI, you want them to be complacent. You want them to continue operating as if they're in the clear, nobody knows, they've still hidden it. Sometimes we'll get people, they'll call us and, they did find evidence, and then there's a confrontation, and then they hire us, and, sometimes the person lays low, or the person, maybe they cut it off with the other person. So, hiring us, there's a bunch of aspects to it too. Like, a lot of times people are looking at divorce. They're trying to get evidence for court, in the divorce. Sometimes people they don't even care about court. They don't care about divorce. They just want to know. So there's a couple of different aspects to that. When you hire a PI company, they should be collecting evidence that you can use in court. That should be where they operate at, because the person who hires you could be all over the place. They could, hey, I know I want divorce. I know this, or I don't know if I want to try and work it out. Maybe I want to try reconciliation. Right. But sometimes, even if you're in that place, you can still hire a PI, because, just like the old adage, like, it's the whole thing about it's better to have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have it. It's better to have the evidence and not need it than need it and not have the evidence.
That's a good point. Let's circle back because you said something interesting. You said even if you have the evidence, pause.
Yeah.
Usually people are taught if you have a suspicion and you have no proof, you have no evidence, don't be so quick and so hasty to approach your spouse because people can automatically deny. And if you don't have any evidence, then what legs do you have to stand on? But you're saying even when you have it. Now, let's talk about that a little bit more because listen, I'm reading this text. It's very suggestive. It just told me. But your point is they could lay low. So
True.
If they have the evidence, why would they still need to hire a private investigator?
Well, because there are levels of evidence for the court that the court requires. And you could talk to any family law attorney about it. Typically what they want to see is they want to see pattern. Well, one is opportunity. The opportunity for the person to engage in that time. And there's some sort of pattern. And because, let's say someone met somebody one time at a restaurant. Oh, it's my old friend. We met up for dinner one time. It's explainable. But pattern over time, a period of time, that's harder to explain. If you're meeting up with this person 2-3 times a week, also place, because it's time, manner, and place. So you meet up at a hotel.
Right.
You explain that.
Right.
So, and our investigations, they're done we do it over a 2-week period. Our typical infidelity investigation is done over a 2-week period. So it's 14 days. And our base amount of time, our smallest amount of time is 16 total hours. And we typically break it up into 4-hour blocks. And we work with the client on, because they know this person's schedule for the most part. And so we'll pick 4 times during those 2 weeks where the opportunity to catch them doing something is higher, is the most probable to catch them. Because we don't watch them 24/7.
Okay.
So we have to pick the most opportune time. There are also other times where, clients will even go as far as we'll set them up and say, hey, go out of town. Go out of town for a weekend. Go travel, go visit a family member or something for the weekend. And then sometimes we could put all that out,
Really?
all that hours in that.
So now I'm fascinated, because if you're doing things based upon the schedule of the clients, what does the typical workload look like for a PI? Like how many cases can they have? What is their life like? Because you're traveling all over the place. I don't know, hiding in alleys, like ducking in your car. Like what is the world of a PI life like?
Well, I work as a case manager now. I'm not out in the field, but I have about anywhere on a good day 8 to 10 investigators who are available, and I personally manage about anywhere from 30 to 35 cases.
Wow.
They're not all infidelity. There's other things. People are trying to get served or located, but the bulk of it is infidelity.
What percentage of the calls that you get are specific to infidelity?
That's a good question. I don't answer the phone.
So or the caseload.
I don't answer the phone, but yeah, I probably would say about 60 to 70% of the cases that I manage are infidelity.
60%?
Yeah, infidelity related, in some form or another. It's not just married couples. We have boyfriend and girlfriends that, live like they're a family, live like they're married. So it's not always a divorce related thing, but there are so many, we even have people that with the dating on like Tinder and all the social media app dating, we'll have people call us to, do background checks and asset checks.
Really?
Oh yeah. People, if they're dating on Tinder and it's becoming more regular or something like that, we'll have people want to find out how much money the other person makes or how much money they might have.
I guess you could be whoever you want online. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like be careful with online dating because I can create a profile. I can give you pictures. I can catfish you all day long.
Yeah. And and that's the thing. So, a good background check, and to be quite honest, I mean, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I'd probably tell her to do the same thing. But I don't think she's on dating apps. So I've already won that battle. Like, I've already raised her right in that way. Don't go to dating apps.
So let me ask you this. If 60% of your caseload, man, that's a high percentage, deals with infidelity, what are the typical signs that people are seeing and experiencing in their relationship that would even give them pause to say, you know what, I need to go deeper?
I'm kind of careful about answering that question.
Okay.
And the only reason why is because, people are different. Like, everyone's lives are different. And I would never want to tell anyone, this specific thing means.
That's a good point.
And this is just for me.
Okay.
Because you're the professional on this, not me, not me. I have experience from working these cases, but I don't, it's anecdotal, to a certain extent.
What percentage of your cases are deemed inconclusive because you haven't seen anything?
It's very low.
Is it?
Yeah, it's low because for most part, when people come to us, they kind of have they have that smoke. They have that good smoke. And then the question becomes, what do you want the evidence for? And a lot of people say, I just need to know. Some people need it for court. There's all kinds of different, reasons.
I want you to walk me through a scenario. Someone for quite some time has had the suspicion that their spouse has been unfaithful. They've collected some data which would bring them to the conclusion that it is, but they just need that confirmation. They pick up the phone, they call your office. Walk me through what that initial conversation is like. What questions are you asking them? What could one expect to experience dialing in and securing your services?
Well, basically, if you were to call us, we're going to want to find out some basics, married, not married, cohabitating still or not.
Why is that important?
Well, it's important because, when you're, and again, not everyone is in this situation, but like if you're married, you've been married for many years or whatever, your lives are like this.
Okay.
So you're on the same phone plan, same phone bill.
Gotcha.
How are we, finances are like this. You both have access to each other's banks. When you go to pay us, the retainer, what's up? What was this money for?
Gotcha.
And so, there's certain things where we want to know proximity with this person that we're going to be following around and investigating to the client, because if they're not living together and they're off the phone bills and their finances are separated, then the client is considered to be like completely autonomous to the subject. So that's important to know, because there's been times where people do find out that their spouse has hired a PI, and then they're calling us, and the people call us all the time. Did this person hire you? We can't tell you that, but people will call because they suspect. So to try to avoid that, we get that information first to then know how to proceed later when we actually conduct the investigation. Like, how are we going to communicate? And it's funny because there's some of the same tactics that cheaters use to keep their affair undercover.
So you have to operate a secrecy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wow.
We're not texting and calling on the regular phone. We're going to use an app like WhatsApp or something that's not going to show up on your phone bill. If you need to withdraw the money or find another way to pay us, so it's not popping up on the bill that the person can see and be like, hey, what's this? That's how we want to work. But for me specifically, so with us, it's two conversations. You have a conversation with the person initially, and that person sets up the case, and then once the retainer's paid and the case is set up, then it's given to me, and then I'll call the client, have another follow-up conversation.
Okay.
So, and that follow-up conversation gets a little bit more deeper because, I feel it's important to kind of understand people on a humanistic level. I worked in law enforcement for years, and I worked homicide cases for a long time. And so I've had the opportunity to meet people on that human level. When I worked as a cop, there was years where I was very robotic, like this is just a job, one case to the next. And then when I really got good, when I became the best investigator ever that I ever was, I stopped doing that. I started. It's a double-edged sword too. So it's one of the reasons I don't do law enforcement anymore, is because, for me to be the best investigator I could, I try to make a human connection. I try to get to know them. I try to get to know the victim, know the family on a personal level, so I could better investigate the case. And I just feel like that's effective in this realm as well. So, me getting to know the client a little bit deeper on a personal level, like what's going on in your life, helps. It does help. And that's kind of why I reached out to you, because I saw an opportunity, going through my thing. I always try to tell my clients, like, look, reconciliation is always possible.
Hello, I'm Dr. Charles Rogers.
I'm Dr. Tiana.
And we bring you greetings from Salt Lake City, Utah. Our marriage was on the way to hell in a basket soaked in gasoline, kerosene, any type of gas to make something burn up faster. And so we felt that it was key to do something about it right now. So we did our research, because we're both being doctors. I did even some more research. I did some cost benefit analysis because I am very financially responsible. And, we connected with, the Couples Academy.
To provide a little bit more context, so before we ended up working with Couples Academy for this weekend intensive, we were separated, living in separate homes, and we've been working with a few other coaches and counselors trying to just resolve the issues that we were struggling to find common ground around. And so we just were ready for the next step, but we weren't sure. We had the what, but we weren't sure of the how. And so it was extremely, I don't want to say risky, but that's how it felt, to reach out and say, we need some help and we need to humble ourselves as the experts and allow someone who has been through this and who has walked other couples through it to guide us in this process. I feel like at the end of the 3 days, which definitely felt like 3 weeks, we are able to walk away not only with skills, but with tools and resources and actionable next steps. It's a relief to have a resource like Couples Academy to be able to help you consider other alternatives, right? Because we come from honestly a history of broken marriages and divorces, and when things were happening or getting complicated, people chose to walk away. And I feel like even today, with cancel culture, it's like, if this gets difficult or this gets hard, I'm checking out, all right? And so I feel like Couples Academy allows you to say, okay, I know that I don't want a divorce, but I also know that I don't want to continue in this the way that it was going. And so they really help to kind of provide that third option of like, there's another way.
But I would add that if you don't have our story, and your story's a little different in terms of like you thinking, you want a divorce.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend at least this being your last step. This should at least be your last step before you make this final decision. I'll conclude by saying that good is the enemy of great. And if you want to really, truly take your marriage from good to great, then holler at my people. couplesacademy.org.com. They can clarify. I'm pretty sure it's down here. Thank you. Peace.
Yes.
You're saying something interesting. You have an opportunity to talk with them, and you bring up the option of reconciliation and the possibility of that. It makes me think of a barber or a hairstylist that someone may frequent. They're sitting in that chair for hours. They're having conversations. That barber, that stylist almost becomes like a counselor, if you will. You go to a bar, the bartender who gives you the drink, they're always giving advice. What percentage of your work is literally, even though you're not a counselor or a therapist, how much of it is you giving advice and guidance in addition to fact finding on their behalf?
It's a lot. It's a lot of talking. I'm on the phone a lot with people, and I mean, I don't have to be, but I feel it. I feel where they're at because I was there. I don't see a lot of efforts in society to try to build up and protect marriage or the institution of marriage. It's just like I was down off Peachtree a couple of days ago, and I was getting a U-Haul truck, and I saw this billboard in Atlanta, and it's a new app called Sneaky Links, and it's literally a social media dating app called Sneaky Links. And I don't know if you're familiar with the popular culture, but like a sneaky link is someone that it's your little side piece, and it's just like, even the apps, like the social media apps, it's like designed to like
destroy relationships.
It's just.
I know you can't share it all.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain things that it wouldn't be, to your best interest to do so. But what can you tell us in terms of a typical process that you may have when doing your own investigation?
Well, once we do the intake, and then I'll speak to the client and get I'll get wrapped around how to best do it. It really comes down to, following them, tracking their location, kind of getting a pattern of how they move. Some people go to brick and mortar jobs. Some people still work at home. I'm trying to find out when the opportunity arises. And then again, I mean, there's some people that they're so good, you're not going to catch them.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets caught, we live in the real world, but, you'll get a pattern of their movement, and then we'll set up and schedule, and I'll assign out investigators to cover those periods of surveillance. Like I mentioned before, we use the 4-hour blocks. And then if we catch them doing what they're not supposed to be doing, we put a report, we make a report, we make a video. It's all formatted and good for court evidence. And if we don't see anything, we'll follow up with the client and say, do you want to do more? You want to follow them and do more? Because, sometimes it's like I was saying, sometimes they already know they have the smoke. They're looking for that I gotcha moment. They're looking to get it on video. And so sometimes they know. It's just trying to catch them and find out, and just prove that. So sometimes if, over that 2-week period, we don't get anything, they might add more time until we do. Or, who knows? I mean, we've had it where, and this kind of feeds back into what you said before about how someone can where you had mentioned the question where someone could kind of mess up the process or do's and don'ts. And so, sometimes when they do the confrontation and they hire us to see if they're still cheating, sometimes people who get caught cheating do cut it off. They do cut it off and end it, and they stop doing it, and they want to make a concerted effort to reconcile and fix the relationship.
Now, listen, I'm not asking you to confirm or deny, but I've been a part of sting operations where there have been private investigators, and in certain instances, the private investigator has to get close. So literally, the proximity between the suspect and the investigator could be as close as a few feet.
Yes.
Or in some cases, I don't even know how they do that, but there are certain technologies where they can even listen through walls. I'm not asking you to confirm or deny.
Yeah.
But think about, I grew up watching Mission Impossible and 007, and you see all types of technology that is used, advanced technology, to figure things out. Is that a part of the PI world?
Well, listening in on conversations, no. I mean, like 99% of the time, you're not going to do that, because the conversation has to be, when you deal with listening to people's conversations or even tracking their location, there has to be, in law, there's what's called a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, you cannot record their conversation. It's just completely illegal. Same thing with tracking their location. It's completely illegal. So, we do utilize tracking, but it's in a way that you're not actually tracking the person. You're tracking maybe the vehicle that they're in, and that vehicle is typically co-owned with the client. So the client has a legal expectation to know, because that's their vehicle. They have a right to know where their vehicle is. You're not really tracking the person per se. But I know Georgia's a one-party state is what they call it. When, like, if you and I were on the telephone on a cell phone call and I was recording you, or you could also record me, and we don't have to tell each other.
Okay, so you don't need.
Not
every state is different.
Some states are different. So,
Gotcha.
like, for example, Florida is a two-party state, meaning if you and I are on the same phone call and I want to record you, I have to ask you.
Gotcha.
Or I have to that's why you ever sometimes call like an automated line, or you call the bank or something, and they're like, just so you know, this line is recorded.
Yes.
They're telling you that because they're informing you, and it gives, if you don't want to be recorded, you can hang up the phone.
So what if you're living in Florida, I'm living in Georgia, and we're having a conversation? Because of where I am physically in my state, I don't have to ask or give any type of warning that this conversation is being recorded, and it can be
for you if you're in Georgia,
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
But in Florida, I mean, that's even still that's a good question, actually. Because, I probably have to ask an attorney or like a prosecutor, see what they would say. I doubt they would prosecute it. But if you were if I was the Florida party and you're the Georgia party and I wanted to record you, I would have to tell you.
So here's a question, because not everyone secures a private investigator. Not everyone can afford to do that.
Right.
Some people take a DIY approach.
Yeah.
What tools, what apps, what technology, what methods, what procedures, what advice do you give to someone who's trying to really figure out if their spouse is being unfaithful?
Well, unfortunately, you want to stay away from following them yourself, because there's laws in stalking. So, and you don't get, just because you're married, it doesn't mean you get to stalk your spouse, right? And that's really why PI companies exist. PI companies exist because certain states, and they pass laws. They don't want people following they don't want private citizens following other private citizens and stalking them in that way. So that's why they hire a licensed PI company, because lawfully let's just say the state of Georgia gives them the ability to follow someone around for insurance fraud or infidelity, things like that. And that's another thing. Like, if we're following someone around or we're tracking that person, we're not giving the client that information live. Okay, because the last thing we want to do, and I know the show Cheaters out there is the whole confrontation. They make shows out of it and stuff like that. That is not at all what we want. We don't promote that at all, because it's just leading to problems. And domestic situations can have a potential for being, could be violence.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it could be violent. So, you never know, like, even the client that hires us, you never know someone's true intention. So you have to have certain safeguards. Like, sometimes we do get clients that call us like, hey, where are they now? Are you following them? Where are they now? Because you never know, someone who's not all there in the right place, or just so overcome with this rage, they want to show up when they're together and do that confrontation and have that. but we're very careful with that. We will not tell people. Maybe the next day, hey, what happened yesterday? Well, they went out to dinner yesterday. We got video evidence of that, but we're not gonna be at the restaurant and be like, yeah, they're here right now. We're not gonna do that because yeah. And honestly, the best thing to do on these investigations with clients is you conduct the investigation, you finish the investigation, and then at the end, then you could give them the results. And it's also easier emotionally too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's easy to, I don't want to say it's easy to, it's hard, but I think it's best. And I even tell this to my clients, like once they hire us, I say, look, you have a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety going on right now with this situation. Let us carry that for this next couple of weeks. Just do your best. Just let it go. Just try to forget about it. Go focus on yourself and do some self-time. Do some me time. And just let us carry that bag of bricks for the next couple of weeks. Because it's emotional, and you don't want to keep giving them update after update after update after update. It's like D-Day all over again.
Every single time you have a new bit of information. That's true.
Every day's new D-Day.
It's like round zero all over again. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I try to encourage people. Look, you hired us for this purpose. Let us take this burden off of you for this next couple of weeks, and go do something. Like do something for yourself. Go to the gym. Go pick up a new book. And just try to let it go. I know that is very hard to do.
So 2 weeks pass by, right? Mm-hmm. You come with the information. Are you having this conversation over the phone? Are you doing it in person? However you do it, when you do share with them the evidence that you have found, what is the typical emotional reaction that you get from your client?
It's a mixed bag. I knew it. I knew what was going on, but they didn't want to believe it. Because for the most part, you don't want to believe it. It's surreal up until the point that you actually see the picture or see the video. Because then it becomes real. So again, it's kind of like, the first D-Day is you have some good evidence. You're like, oh my God. But you don't know for sure because you haven't seen it with your own eyes. But you have something that's very strongly suggestive, and we're not stupid, we're not dumb. So they're probably doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And then when you finally get the videos and the picture, then it's like, there is nothing you can say to yourself. Like your subconscious can't play tricks on you anymore. Your subconscious can't say, that's not them, or this isn't happening. Yeah. So it becomes real. Mm-hmm. And honestly, in one time I had video evidence and the client was like, that's not him, that's somebody else. Because the denial the denial was so strong. Like they just did not want to believe it. And it's a heartbreaker. Like that's a huge heartbreaker. Wow.
It's so interesting you say that, because a lot of people who have been hurt by their spouse because of infidelity, who choose to stay in the marriage, walk around with guards up. There's a wall up. They fear it happening again. They're not emotionally open. They're not willing to connect with their spouse, which is weird because you decided to stay. And so I asked them, I said, well, help me understand. Like you're in this marriage, yet you're refusing to emotionally connect and open up and trust and forgive because they fear it happening again. I said, what are you more afraid of? Are you more afraid of your spouse cheating again, or are you more afraid of what your reaction may be if he does or if she does? And interestingly enough, most people say, I'm afraid of what I'm going to do or not be able to do, because I'm forced to face this reality, yet it happened again, and I don't know what I want to do. A lot of them don't want to leave because of finances, because of children, because of reputation, because of influence, because of a number of different factors. So previously you stated what a person should not do. They should not chase after their spouse. They should not stalk their partner. But what can they do?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I think I think reconciliation should be something that people look into first. Because you'll find out if the other person is being sincere or not. Because I guess at the end of the day, I think a problem with knowing whether to stay or go is difficult because we can't read hearts and minds. If one person cheats on the other person, the person who is cheated on can't, and the person who cheats says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again." They could be sincere in that response. But the person who is betrayed, there's no way that they can know that.
Right.
There's no way. We can't read hearts and minds.
Right.
And so, one of the things I learned, especially from watching you and Danielle, was like, if you can't trust the person, you can trust a process. That was a pivotal thing for me. And that's why I was trying to push, she was giving me all the, she didn't stop, she didn't cut it off. She's lied and lied and lied, like the deception never stopped. But I always wanted to give that opportunity. Like I always wanted to keep that open. And if she was willing to, get involved in a recovery or infidelity type process, recovery process, maybe I could see her response and her reaction in that program. Because that's how you can judge somebody. You can judge someone through their actions. Words don't mean a thing.
I think that's an amazing point you're making.
God, yeah. It's one of those things where to get help from a third party and then being able to watch your partner and how they react to it, how they engage in it, are they taking initiative? Like that is a true, I think that's the only true measuring stick we have as individuals. It's like you have to measure their actions. Are they taking it serious? Because we make time for the things we want to make time for.
That is a fact. Yeah. Pause. Because I can hear people watching this right now. And what they're saying is, when you were in that affair, you spent money, you made time, you sacrificed, you did all types of things, and now you claim you want this marriage, and now when it's time for you to invest the same energy, time, and effort, you can't be bothered. You're too busy. You have too much going on.
Correct.
And that's what they're looking at to say, you don't really care about this, and you don't want this relationship.
Correct. Yeah, it's that, and then the stumbling block of shame. Like, there's so many stumbling blocks that can keep people from getting into like a program that you guys offer. And there's shame, there's the lack of trust. There's all these things. And it's like the unfaithful person, just as much as the betrayed person, has to take that risk and take that chance together to see. I don't know if it was from you. I think there was another resource that I had listened to one time, and they said something that I think is so true. And it was basically the recovery work process itself really isn't there to save the marriage. And you might disagree with this. I don't know. But going through the recovery work process is really not about that. Work in itself is not saving the marriage. The recovery work process is really to determine if your marriage can even be saved in the first place.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because ultimately we're a marriage focused. We want to restore relationships. It's a fair recovery and divorce prevention. But to your point, we can't force people to stay together.
Correct.
And when a person's kind of vacillating, do I stay? Do I go? We say, rather than making the decision, allow the process to help make the decision for you. Because success for one couple will look very different than what success for another couple should be.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, and it's actually the two sides of the coin is this. I mentioned this before about, the betrayed person. There's no way for them to know.
Right.
What the intentions are of the unfaithful. Because for the same reasons why a betrayed spouse may want to try to save a marriage after they've been betrayed, could be on the flip side, the unfaithful person could have those same motivations to try to save the marriage because of the, how deep they're intertwined. Like, divorces are messy. Divorces are crazy. So an unfaithful person, what is their motivation to save the marriage? Is it because they want to choose their spouse? Is it because they just don't want to go through a divorce, but they really still don't love them? They're just gonna, it's like, so that recovery work process, it vets that situation. Like it can get to the true core and true reason why the betrayed spouse wants to stay and why the unfaithful spouse wants to stay. And even if their initial, the reasons for doing so may not be genuine or sincere, they just want to save the marriage. The recovery work process could also turn a light bulb on with them in that process to say, you know what? My reasons for being here wasn't the right reason initially, but now I've learned and now I see that I do want to maybe make this marriage work for the right reason.
The right reasons.
Yeah.
I've said before, you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons and it's not sustainable.
Correct.
But even if you decide to stay for the wrong reasons, at least that gives us enough time to work on some things so that it can transition into the right reasons.
It's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an opportunity because it's a learning process. So I even encourage people that even if they think their marriage isn't savable, just at least try.
Yeah.
At least try. And if at the end of that process, you're going to think one of two things. Either you're going to be like, you know what? I really know this isn't going to work. Or they'll be like, you know what? Maybe it's savable. Maybe we can start a new marriage, build a new marriage, fall in love again. Maybe those things are possible. But at least you can walk away and lay your head on your pillow at night and say, I did everything I possibly could.
I want to go back. So a part of what you do as an investigator is collecting data, information, looking at patterns. When a person is unfaithful and they cheat, there's also financial infidelity because a lot of money is invested in that affair.
Correct, yeah. What
do you discover from a financial perspective in terms of what people do?
I guess it depends on the relationship. I mean, as you know, like there's different levels of infidelity. I wouldn't say levels, but there's different types, like physical, emotional only. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And typically if someone's spending a lot of money, well, it could be either way. I mean, there are people who are like serial going to strip clubs, prostitutes, things like that. And there's a lot of money spent that way. But in an emotional relationship where someone's spending a lot of money, it's like, lavish gifts, plane tickets, vacations, going away.
Wow.
The only bearing that money has or the resources that are spent by those people has on that case is really in the divorce, in the court, because that money, I mean, those are marital assets that they're being spent. So that money has to come back. That money's liable. So if I bought my wife a $20,000 bracelet and then I pulled the old buy two, the buy two, and I got her a $20,000 bracelet. It's like I just spent $20,000 of money that was mine and my spouse's.
Yeah.
So when that comes down to an accounting, when they break down the assets in the divorce, hey, we got evidence that you spent $20,000 on your affair partner. You owe that money.
In some
back.
cases, does that hurt the spouse more? Like, listen, I knew you were having sex.
God.
I knew you were emotionally connected, but you spent this amount of money on this other man or woman. What impact does that have financially? In terms of the emotional impact on the spouse?
Oh, it's huge. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be expensive. It can just be like $1. It's really the thought. It's the thought that counts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely I don't know, like, I hate to say this, but I think emotional affairs are probably, An emotional affair that leads to physicality just has to be the worst. I mean, it's one thing to have an emotional affair with someone that didn't lead to any physical contact, because I would kind of call that like, in my opinion, a close call.
Okay.
You know, but if it's been, but then again, it all depends on like the circumstances. Every situation is different. But the fact that, well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a personal example.
Okay.
My ex bought her affair partner a birthday present. I was like, it was something stupid. It wasn't even like a big deal. But I was just the thought that counted. You know, it was like the thought of it that hurt. It didn't matter. She could have bought him anything. You know, she could have got him a Cracker Jack toy out the Cracker Jack box. But the fact that she thought about it enough to give it to him or to hold it, and
so for you, in your mind, that showed you how deep this relationship actually
absolutely was. Because I believe in things like pair bonding. I believe in things like, I mean, I've had some clients where they found out that their spouse bought the fragrance that their affair partner wears.
Wow.
So their spouse could wear it so they could think about the affair partner.
Man.
Like stuff like that.
That's what we call death by a thousand cuts.
Oh my God, listen. You know, but at the end of the day, my belief is I don't think anything's completely, totally unforgivable. It's just all about the choices we make inside for ourselves.
Yeah.
If it's something that you don't want to forgive or you think that's unforgivable, that's fine. It's your choice, no judgment. But I just always think it's best to tell people, like, you know, let's try not to think in absolutes. You know, like, just keep an open mind. Keep an open mind, because you never know.
Yeah.
Like, life is crazy. Things end up in this world in a way that sometimes we just never can foresee. And, you know, I don't know, especially like people who have been together for 20 something years, got kids. It's like, that's just not something you just kick loose.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people are very hasty and they do things impulsively.
Absolutely.
In the moment, they're very emotional. And I say this all the time. If you make a decision to leave while you're in your emotions, you may regret it and want to stay. So taking that time is important.
Absolutely, because a year goes by.
Oh.
I mean, because it's like talking about seasons and periods in your life. Like, in a couple years, you and I are not going to be the same person. In a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, we're not going to be the same person. That's why, like, marriages and relationships are hard, because as time progresses, the people who are together change. And if you don't try to stay connected, you don't try to work together and work on the relationship, you're going to change. You're going to get disconnected through your change through time.
So here's a technical question. You know, with the rise of technological advances, how has that changed the way you investigate?
Well, I mean, in the PI field, I've been doing this for almost 2 years, so the technology is pretty much the same, but you know, it's really the apps where you can message on that are encrypted. That, I mean, you're not going to get that. You won't get that. Everyone knows you won't get that. So it's not like I'm giving a trade secret or anything. You're not going to get it on the phone bill. We do have some services where we can hack into. It's not really a hack. The client will give us the information on their router, and then we can monitor router traffic through that remotely, and we can see whatever that target device is. If they're using a phone, we can see if are they on WhatsApp? What are they using a lot? You know, are they on WhatsApp at like 2:00 in the morning? Why are they on WhatsApp at 2:00 in the morning? I mean, you're not going to get content. Like, you're not going to get the content of that. But you're going to be able to see if they're using that.
Like behavioral patterns and things like that.
Are they using Snapchat? Like, are they using apps that they claim that they don't have? Like, oh, babe, I didn't know you had a Snapchat. I don't have Snapchat. But, you know, we look at the router history, and it's like they've been on Snapchat at 3:00 in the morning, 4:00 in the morning, when they got up to go use the bathroom. So that's another thing, being on your phone in the bathroom. Sort of like a lot of people are sitting there.
That
Just like,
phone,
babe, why? Babe, why? You went to the bath. I know you got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to use the bathroom, and then you have router traffic at the same time, where like they're on Snapchat or whatever, Tinder. You can find out if they're on dating apps.
the phone has been a point of contention for a lot of couples because you can live a whole separate life on the phone.
Oh yeah.
So couples argue all the time, like, if I got to give you access to my phone, then this relationship is over, right? And then others say, well, listen, if there's trust, people who have nothing to hide nothing. I want access to your phone. So I'm sure that's been a conversation at least you've had with your clients.
Yeah, and that's my favorite one-liner that I've heard from you and Danielle is, if you have nothing to hide, you hide nothing. And I'm a firm believer in that. Like, and I don't know where this comes from. I don't know if this is just more like, I don't know, say gaslighting or manipulation or whatever, or if a person was truly raised this way. Like, I have no idea. But this idea of like my phone, my privacy, and I'm married. Like, if I'm married, me and my spouse have these passwords that we can't, the temptations are just too strong.
Yeah.
We're human beings. Yeah. We're all human beings. We're all capable. This is another crazy thing. And I learned this, just in law enforcement in general. Like, it's easy to turn on the TV and say, you see some crazy thing happen in Atlanta today. It's easy for us to sit here, at home on our couch and go, that's crazy. I would never do something like that. Or how can people do these things? Mm-hmm. But the reality is we're all human and we're all capable. You don't know, that person could be sick. That person could have circumstances in their lives that they felt like they had to do that or they got involved in that. But at the end of the day, it's like, even when you're married, I look at the divorce statistics, I'm like, 50% divorce statistics. I'm happily married, 15 years of my marriage. Everything's going, I think everything's going good. And it's like, next thing I know, it's like, damn, I'm part of that statistic now. I never thought it would happen to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of, in a way, everyone's kind of naive to the idea that, what other people do or what happens to other people can't happen to me, and I'm incapable of doing that. Yeah. And I think it's very realistic for us to humble ourselves and say, I'm a human being just like the next person, and I'm capable of doing crazy, heinous things as well. And because I know that, I want to work and guard myself from those things. I want to stay as best I can, stay on that good, straight and narrow path.
You make such a powerful point right now.
You have to protect yourself.
No one's above reproach, and no one is above the possibility of falling, particularly if you've fallen again. So a lot of times, a former unfaithful person will make these vows and declarations about what they'll never do again.
Correct.
And I heard somebody say something very powerful. They said, if anybody does that, don't trust it. Because they said that every human being should have a healthy suspicion of the possibility of them doing it, because they've done it before. And if I've done it before, I can do it again. So to your point, you in essence have to protect you from yourself.
Correct.
If I get vulnerable enough, if I get weak enough, if the circumstances align, I could be in the same space that I once was. So I've got to put things in place.
Well, it's I could put it this way. I didn't cheat, but I knew that I could potentially do it, just as she did. I don't think that I'm a better person than her because she cheated and I didn't. I just didn't, and I didn't because I know that I could be capable of doing that if I put myself in a position. Like if I'm having these conversations with people, inappropriate conversations, personal relationships with the opposite sex. Like there are pitfalls and there are things that could, if you keep surrounding yourself around, you could fall victim to. You could do it yourself. So, yeah, I mean, And again, going back to just on a personal level, like as a man being married, and I've been tempted. I've had people come after me. You know, I've probably had conversations that went too far. I never went through with it on a physical level. I mean, I can't, we're all imperfect. Like I've had inappropriate conversations. It's going to happen. It's just, are you ready to not fall victim and not fall into that trap? And the only way I think you can be ready for that is by telling yourself, like, if I don't constantly work on it, I could get complacent. I think that's something that, you know, something we used to say in law enforcement that I heard in law enforcement is complacency kills. You know, it's like if you get into this routine, and you stop thinking about it, you stop defending or keeping your guard up for it, you can get in a routine situation where something bad happens and you weren't prepared for it. So, you know, I think complacency can touch in anything. Complacency can be in your relationships. Complacency can come into play in a lot of different things.
Jay, this has been a fascinating conversation. I mean, man, the amount of insight that you have shared, I think, is going to be something that really resonates to those who are watching. I want you to speak to the person right now who is kind of in that space of, should I pull the trigger and pick up the phone and call? If you could end by just telling us how we can get in contact with you and give the listener an argument as to why they should call you.
Well, I would say this. Well, first, you can reach us at blackspearintelligence.com.
Black Spear?
Yeah, Blackspear.
Intelligence.com.
Yep, that's the PI firm. And you can just Google it, call the 888 number on there, and you'll get someone right away. If you're on the fence and you don't know if you think you need to call, I mean, it's probably better just give us a call anyway, because we do consultations on the phone all the time. And we get people who are in a situation where they're really not even ready to hire us yet, but they'll call us. You know, they'll call us. So if you're not in a place where you need a PI yet, but you're not sure, just give us a call, because we'll tell you. Like, if we can do something for you, we can help you. If not, we're not gonna just push the envelope and just try to like do something for you if it's not needed. And there's a lot of times where I speak to people and you know, I tell them, just wait, see what happens. You know, let's see what happens. You can always call us back. So when in doubt, I would just say give us a call, because if you're even thinking about it, you probably have a reason to think about it, and it's better to err on the side of caution. And I mean, I've had people that really didn't even end up hiring us, but we gave them some advice and we consulted them on what they should do next, and it worked out. So.
Wow. Well, man, I appreciate you joining us. If you've enjoyed this show and you realize, you know what, I think I may need their services, call Black Spear Intelligence.com, right?
Correct. BlackSpearIntelligence.com.
Just say Couples Academy so they know that it came from us. Well, listen, hopefully this is not the last conversation we'll have. No. There's a lot more we can go into, but I hope you got something out of today's podcast. You're watching After Infidelity with Hasani Pettiford. Take care.